introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns, and anything you'd like anybody to know about you.
Okay, so hi, I'm the Nameless Narcissist, also known as Jacob Skidmore, ironically. I make content on narcissistic personality disorder and trying to destigmatize / explain the behaviors behind it and educate people because nobody knows a goddamn thing about narcissism nowadays, it seems. People are going to ask, so I wear the sunglasses as a symbol of hiding the self. And because I don't know, when I'm in public, I feel like people can't judge me as much, which is really fucking weird.
Yeah.
And that really is all that there is to know about me. Please follow me on YouTube.
What was your diagnosis journey like?
Ooh, so it's a little bit long. I feel like everybody has kind of the same beginning experience of knowing something is like wrong, in quotes, maybe not wrong, but off. Just not knowing what the fuck it was. It became, the first time I noticed it was I couldn't have been older than 12. I don't know what age it was exactly. Going to a funeral and not really feeling much about it, and like seeing everybody like be so sad, and I was like, oh, they're either being dramatic, doing it for attention, but then like in the back of my head, I was like, what if it's with me? What if like that's the normal response?
Yeah.
Eventually, when I entered high school, it became more and more apparent because I felt lonely all the time. I started noticing how like it felt like I interacted with people in different ways because I always view people as like math equations, where it's like I don't really know what's going on in there, but I know what numbers to put in to get out.
Yeah.
And it felt like everybody else would just go up to my fictional math equation computer and just smash fucking buttons. It felt like there's no logic to it.
Yeah.
And I rationalized it by being like, oh, I'm just smarter than them.
You felt like it was very erratic, almost? Like with the emotions?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, like they weren't calculated at all with the way that they weren't careful with the way that they talked. Like, as I'm talking, I'm constantly making sure that I'm using the right words or to come off a certain way, or for people to view me a certain way.
Yeah.
And like when or like you'll notice a lot of the times I'll preemptively say things that protect the statement that I just made because I'm trying to anticipate how you're going to react to it. And basically, I was in a relationship with a girl that was like really good for me, and I ended up cheating on her with somebody with, I'll just say, strong borderline traits.
Yeah.
And and like somebody who like I was on and off with for a long time. And I entered therapy to actually impress the girl who I was with at that point. She broke up with me the second session, but whatever. And but I stayed in because I was like, why the question I've been asking myself my entire life, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Like I never understood why I did things. And I also started coming to terms with some of my childhood trauma. Going to therapy and staying there, and eventually got diagnosed.
Okay. How long do you think it took you to get diagnosed since you had gotten in therapy? Because of the stigma of NPD, when it comes to that, therapists tend to probably...
The combination of the stigma and because of the fact that I lied for 2 years, it took me about 2 years to get diagnosed.
Damn. How did you react whenever you got diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder? Did they tell you at first, or was it something that you came to find out about?
They told me pretty quickly, because therapists love to do that thing. They'll be like, oh, that sounds pretty grandiose of you, or like, shit, like they literally say the diagnostic criteria, and then they're like, oh, well, we talked about it, you meet these things.
Yeah.
So, and I caught on to that pretty quickly, because I'm not an idiot. And honestly, my reaction was, oh, so I am special. I wore it as a badge of pride, not going to lie. And that's why I even struggle with to this day, right? Trying to not be grandiose about being a narcissist. And it's funny because I see a lot of narcissists fall into this trap where they look online and there's narcissists or master manipulators. They can read people like a book. And it's like, we become grandiose about it. We're like, fuck yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we're the best manipulators.
Yeah.
We're fucking, and which is something I have to tell people. I'm like, listen, we're not master manipulators. We're being grandiose. And we can only manipulate people because most people go off of good faith. Like, they have no reason to assume that we're lying.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I was pretty grandiose about it, not gonna lie.
So how does having NPD affect your life?
I would say the primary thing I focus on in terms of want to talk about NPD and how it's most impactful is that almost everything I do is for the purpose of regulating my self-esteem, right? Because a lot of people don't know this, but the idea of grandiose versus vulnerable narcissist, it's not really a real thing, because pathological narcissists will basically flip-flop between the two, depending on how their life is going. So basically, I have a constant quest to get, I call it self-esteem juice, to regulate my self-esteem, getting people's approval or trying to make myself feel good about myself, because otherwise I want to hate myself. And that also manifests because people often conflate grandiosity with self-love.
Yeah.
Very, very different. There's no self-compassion in my grandiosity. I hate myself, but I think I'm better than everybody. That's how we cope with our self-hate, is instead of loving ourselves, we try to feel better than other people.
Yeah.
And that's where like my self-esteem juice quest comes in, is that trying to make myself feel grandiose, feel above people, et cetera, et cetera. So that's probably how it impacts me the most, is that I'm constantly trying to maintain my self-esteem. I think if you want to rename it, you can call it self-esteem dysregulation disorder. It's so funny because people are like, oh, narcissists can't be aware that they're narcissists. And it's like, I bet that's a thing, because who wants to have the asshole disorder? You know what I mean? The abuser disorder. Because, like, I'm sure that a lot of them that are using a label are self-reflective.
Yeah.
But, like, this is a population who's very vulnerable to criticism, to, like self-esteem dropping and stuff. Yeah. They don't want to have the abuser disorder. Yeah. Narcissism doesn't cause abuse, but it can color abuse, right? Mm-hmm. You might be motivated by pathological motivators, but it's just that NPD is inherently abusive, obviously, even though we can be toxic. I do think that it's harder to find abuse, you know what I mean? Because everybody hurts people.
Because I even saw your post about how having a mental illness and cluster B disorder, statistically, it doesn't even show proof of higher domestic violence cases, because it's just like every other person, because someone with a cluster B disorder is a person just like everybody else. You know what
Honestly.
I mean? We just have different behaviors.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that, like, we're wired different. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't make us inhuman, you know. We're all individuals, you know what I mean? It's like, even if they did know somebody who was narcissistic, who did abuse them and stuff like that, that doesn't paint every single narcissist in a homogenous way.
Exactly.
Like, we all have our own personality traits, mm-hmm. aside from our pathological ones.
How does the stigma against NPD affect you?
So I'm in a unique place because of my content creation, where it's like the criticism really get, when there's generalizations, all narcissists are monsters or possessed by demons, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Is that, like, I can get very defensive and I'm very angry, and the criticism bugs me, like, mm-hmm. Because, you know, I'm particularly sensitive to it, like, to the point that, like, sometimes I'm ruminating on it. I can't even sleep.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's hard for me to come out to people about my disorder, because there's so much, the associations with it are so negative.
Yeah.
I've had friends who I've come out with it, and they start coloring everything I do through the lens of my narcissism and assuming I have either malicious intent or selfish intent.
Yeah.
And that makes it very difficult. Like, I imagine right now, I haven't encountered it yet, but I imagine at some point, if my current relationship doesn't work out, that would really inhibit my ability to get into a committed relationship. Because, you know, who wants to be in a relationship with somebody that has the abuser disorder?
What do you think about people calling abusers narcissists despite them not having NPD?
It's annoying as shit. Because we are coloring narcissism through this lens of abuse. Yeah. When even if that is an external behavior that some narcissists have, it's not a defining factor of it. I always can tell if somebody who is talking about that kind of stuff, being in a relationship with a narcissist, actually wasn't one, depending on how much they use terms like gaslighting, Hoover, discard, because those don't describe narcissistic behaviors. Those describe behaviors that anybody can exhibit. Mm-hmm. But then if they're talking about, like, hiding the self, emotional dysregulation, grandiosity, then I'm like, okay, maybe you're actually onto something there. I also like to emphasize the fact that, like, not just narcissists lack empathy. There's plenty of normal people who lack empathy too. Which I don't know, the associations between narcissism and abuse are toxic as shit right now.
Yeah. That's the biggest part. That's the biggest part of the stigma, I feel like. Like, you keep saying, like, abuse disorder because that's what people think it is. Someone thinks narcissist, oh, they're abusive. They have an abusive disorder. No. Why did you become a creator and advocate online for narcissistic personality disorder?
Again, it was just, at first, it was for paying attention. I have no deal with saying that, but then eventually it just expanded in scope as I got further in my recovery and started, like, exploring this genuine altruism. Like, helping other people who are narcissistic feel understood is, like, so weird. Not weird, but, like, it hits home, because my entire life I was kind of like, I'm different than everybody, and I just want to kind of be like that for the rest of my life. And it was I came to terms with it, but it wasn't a great feeling.
Yeah.
And like when I was younger, I had someone like me talking about this stuff in the way that I do, I would have been a lot less neurotic, probably.
So what's your favorite thing about being a creator online?
Fuck, I never even thought about this. The fame. It's actually hard to say, and it feels like such a cop out. You're like the people I've met, because it's like fucking everybody says that. Yeah. I'm trying to think of something. Honestly, I don't know. Honestly, it might be the admiration that people are like, "Oh my god, you're so smart." Because that does color a lot of, and like again, that's not my only motivation.
With, like, the self-esteem part as well, like being able to regulate, like you were talking about how people viewing you a certain way and like how that makes you feel.
Yeah, I mean, like, and again, not my only motivation, but it's like that does color a lot of things that I do, because it's like, well, it's one of the most important things in my life is to be able to regulate my self-esteem, because otherwise I'm going to hate myself. Yeah. So being able to feel good about myself with and being able, and hell, I get to explore genuine feeling cared for too, if that makes sense. It's like you're like, oh, we care about you, and I'm like, that makes me uncomfortable. What the fuck? Actually, no. I think learning how other people think, learning how I think, and being able to explore other emotions. Those are probably the things that I like the most, because
go on.
I just find it fascinating to learn how other people with different disorders think, how normal people think, stuff like that. Because for so long I thought how I thought was normal. Because why wouldn't I? Yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, what is your least favorite thing about being a creator online?
Criticism. Hands down criticism. I can't stand it. Again, I ruminate about it and just rage. And there's times I just do not look at my TikTok comments, period, because it affects me so negatively. Yeah. Hate it. I'm trigger happy. I'm like, block. I don't give a fuck.
No, because I got
50,000 of you guys. I don't need any of you.
Ignore the hate. Ignore them, because they're dumb.
That's right.
What do you wish, what is one thing you wish everybody knew about narcissistic personality disorder?
So hard to decide, because it's
there's so many things.
Literally everything about it is misunderstood. I guess if I had to settle on one, though, is that when we do hurt people, because, and again, I never deny that I've hurt people in my life. A lot of people with NPD have hurt people in their lives. I mean, everybody hurts at some point, right? And we do more often. But it's not that we're some evil mastermind trying to hurt and prey on all the people around us. No, it's because of our own self-absorption, and that leads to negligence, and our just a need to get and emotional dysregulation, and trying to get our needs met in terms of our self-esteem juice.
So to kind of conclude this part of the interview, what is there anything else you'd like to say? Is there anything else you'd like to say to people watching about NPD? Anything we haven't talked about yet?
This is going to sound... I was about to say everything you know about narcissism is wrong, but no. Yeah. But I would say be open to that idea that everything you know about narcissism is wrong, because there's so much stigma out there, and it takes a lot of deep dives to get to really what it is, Yeah. Unless you're looking at literal research papers or my content, you're literally never going to be able to get at actually what the meat of narcissism is. It's all these articles describing external behaviors at worst and at best, and then completely wrong internal drives at worst. Yeah. Just assume everything you read on the internet about narcissism is wrong.
It was great talking to you. And again, if you have any questions, just text me.
I
really do appreciate it.
Send me a link when it's out.
Yeah, of course. All right, you have a great day.
Hope you like my videos. Is there anything else I'm supposed to say as a YouTuber?